an inspiration to her peers and younger generation, and an asset to our nation, Nepal. With hard work and passion, it is possible to achieve the unachievable. Namaste, this is Babita Shrestha welcoming you to Light and Shadow, brought to you by the Third Eye Group, sponsored by Zen Travels, Washington, D.C. Started from a lecturer to becoming South Asia's Regional Director of United Nations Development Fund for Women, Ms. Chandni Joshi's professional journey gave her innumerous challenges at national, regional and global levels, which have enhanced her capabilities and evolved her into driving force of knowledge in diverse issues. Today I am privileged to be interacting with Ms. Chandni Joshi, who served as the Gender Rights and Policy Specialist for decades. With more than 5 decades of working experience, constantly striving for a world of equal opportunities, equal choices, and equal recognition for work for both women and men. Let us find out more about the lady with substance and take on what Nepali women are and come from. So please join me in welcoming Ms. Chandni Joshi to Light and Shadow. Ma'am, thank you so much for welcoming us to your home, and even during the pandemic period, we are honored to be here at your place.
Yes, namaste Babita ji. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, for coming and meeting me at home. Yes. And I really feel privileged because you are reaching the unreached. For me, Nepali diaspora is very near my heart, and I know how it feels, you know, when you're away. And I remember one of your interviews where you said, "Jiu yahan cha, tara mero man tyahan cha." So reaching that group. So thank you for giving me this privilege.
Thank you.
I was really looking forward for this.
Oh, thank you so much once again, ma'am. Chandni Joshi, the lady with beauty and brains. That's what we heard growing up. And to be in front of this beautiful lady with both beauty and brains is an honor for me and my whole Light and Shadow team.
Thank you so much.
What motivated you to becoming a gender rights and policy specialist, and why?
I think it was a little, I would say, it was destiny. A little was my love, respect and trust in women, because I always felt, you know, especially the excluded women, when I'd look around, and this I have said in so many of my interviews, you know, even as a small girl, when I saw those prisoners, women prisoners in Palpa, I really used to wonder. They were so beautiful, you know, they were like carved and, you know, they were like statues, but still, why were they there, you know, those questions. That used to really haunt me. So I was very concerned. You know, I was very concerned about justice. I was very concerned about reaching the unreached. I think that was my whole thrust of life. I wanted women to be known for what they do, to be recognized, their voices heard, and those invisible women had to be seen. So that itself was a huge battle in those days. You know, where women were always looked upon as bichara mahila, you know, abala, ke garna nasakne, sochna nasakne, garna nasakne, kamjor. You know, that was the whole concept. And I was saying, no, they are self-reliant, they can be self-sustained, they are hard-working, they are honest, they are true. So, but we have to find them. We have to seek them, we have to help them, we have to find them and be with them. You know, be their courage. So I think that really motivated me. And what I chose was, as I said, you know, maybe it sounds more like a cliche, but I said, you know, looking for those unreached women is not in the district headquarters. You know, they are up there somewhere in the village. You know, you have to walk a few miles, a few hours, you know, to reach them. They were the unreached. So that's how, you know, when I started the PCRW program, the Production Credit for Rural Women, which I started in 5 districts. And later, you know, the realization was that the banks learned, the government learned, that women had to be trusted. They have to be taken seriously. And the whole concept, I started a new cadre of women development officers. And they didn't believe, that officers, gazetted officers were needed. So that realization came, not one, not five, but 75 women development officers, एकचोटि नेपालमा पुरा, as they said, अधिराज्यमा पुरा 75 डिस्ट्रिक्टमा थियो. And recently a study has been done by the Ministry of Women, Children and Elderly, and they have found out that 1.5 million women benefited from that program. So that gives me the courage, and I feel very much how do I say, happy. It really makes me very happy to see that people's lives changed, and that has been my learning. So whatever I was able to do later, that I took that learning with me. And that's exactly what UNIFEM wanted me to do. They said, come. They were decentralizing. UNIFEM was decentralizing, and they were looking for a regional director for South Asia, the 9 countries. Iran was also included. So when they were doing, looking for this person, they were saying, we need someone who can really enhance the program in South Asia itself. So that's how I was the chosen one there too. So would you call it destiny? It was not ambition that I had planned, okay, 9 years I teach, then I go. It wasn't that. Because while teaching in Padmakanya, the whole, we didn't even have a university board. We were under the Patna board. And when the university cadre started, I either had to sacrifice my 9 years of, career with the government, because after doing my masters when I was 19, I contested for the Public Service Commission, and that's when I went to teach. So you had to be a civil servant to teach also, because there was no university board. But when the Tribhuvan University cadre started, they asked me, do you want to continue with us? Then you have to resign from the government. So I decided, 9 years was enough.
Okay.
Enough is enough. They say 10 वर्ष पढाएपछि गुरु पनि गुरु हुन्छ. So I thought it's better, because I started teaching language. If it was just literature, maybe I would have, I wouldn't even have left it. तर language पढाउनु पर्ने चाहिँ अलि बोरिङै भइसकेको थियो. So I decided to move on to administration, and that's how things started. And I knew I didn't know gender. I knew very well I didn't know women's development. So I tried to learn. When I was given the responsibility, I remember my boss saying, your chief of women development program is not working. We have given the responsibility to 4 people. You'll be the 5th one. Do you think you can carry it further? I said, I don't think so, because I don't know what is women in development. So unless I learn. So we decided to learn together, the whole team in the ministry. So we went to Seva in India, and met Ilaban, and we learned what the whole white revolution was, what Seva Bank was. Then we went to Grameen in Bangladesh, met Professor Yunus, and learned what the Grameen, the whole principal philosophy of Grameen Bank was. Then we went to BRAC, and similarly we went to Jhilimili, and we went to Rangabelia. So we looked at different modules. And then I came back and I started my own PCRW model, because USAID and SIDA had done a study on the status of women, and they had come out with beautiful figures, data, by that 2 years research that they had done. So we picked that up and we started this program.
It's amazing. So you said there were 9 countries that were involved, and what similarities or differences you saw in these countries?
If there are 2 ways of looking at it. As you call your institution light and shadow, it's the same. There's light, there's hope. There are a lot of positivity if you really look at the women. And if you really ask me, there's no difference. They're all the same. They're trustworthy. You can have full faith in them. They are honest, and they are very hardworking. So the same characteristics of all women, especially the rural women, they are the same. But when you look at the difficulties, the challenges, there are huge differences. The whole dowry thing comes up, child marriage comes up, this embedded discrimination comes up. So it's very difficult to compare one country with another. But South Asia wasn't a very easy place to work. But they give me the credit for handling it beautifully for 18 years. As a regional director, I kept that balance. And there was not even one government, I'm touching wood while saying that, not one government who were anti-against at all.
Okay.
When you could explain, when you could talk about your goals properly, in a broad, in a proper interpersonal communication style, people understood. So I don't remember any country, any political system that were hindrance to women's development in South Asia and Iran.
Because when it comes to gender equality, women is always second-class citizen. Men were always given the upper hand. So that's why it's for us, especially South Asia, a developing country, we still fight, I think, to get that same platform with both genders. Do you see it that way? Or?
Well, I don't even think this persists only in South Asia.
Okay.
I think it's everywhere in the world, any country in the world, even the Scandinavian countries. You talk about so many positive things, but there are certain hidden things. Or else, the MDG goal, third, that is on gender equality, why wasn't it achieved? Because not even one country in the whole globe, in the whole world, that achieved MDG goal. So that speaks for itself.
Okay.
There are these differences. And second-class citizenship, it's more than second-class citizen. It's more like women are taken for granted. I strongly feel, like people do a kind of a humble jumble when it comes to their role. She has a biological reproductive role of hers, which no one can share, no one can take over. But the other role of the care, of nurturing, parenting, cleaning, cooking, feeding, these things can be shared.
Absolutely.
But it becomes the fate of a woman. And I was speaking on a World Bank forum, I remember, giving a keynote address, and I was saying, even if a prime minister, a woman is a prime minister, I'm sure when she reaches home that evening, the cook will come and say, "Ma'am, what shall I cook for tomorrow morning?" So, that kitchen part, that feeding part, that nurturing part is always her responsibility.
That's true.
Which can be shared. So whenever it comes to unpaid things, she is doing it. And after COVID, you saw it so, militantly. It was so much there that the care economy was, itself was so much heightened. And even now, the whole system, the governments are looking for, the UN is looking for data. And they have found out that it's $10.8 trillion annually that is calculated in terms of unpaid work.
Wow.
So at least that figure has come out. That is the work she does. And can you imagine if you add that to GDP? What would Nepal's GDP look like if you add the unpaid work that she does?
Wow, that's true.
If every household had to pay for that work, how much would it cost?
That's true. And ma'am, you started teaching at the age of 19, right? You were still a teenager. And what was that experience?
Well, there were two sides of it. One was, I think I was more, I was very popular.
Okay.
You can ask any of my students, I was their favorite.
Okay.
And even the teachers would say, no one would ever miss my class. My class would always be, the whole classroom would be full. No seats would be available. People would, girls would even stand in rows. But in others' classes, that didn't happen. So I was popular one. Maybe I was of the same age group.
Yeah.
Maybe, our whole thinking pattern was the same. There was no generation gap. And the other was, even the teachers would say, oh, she likes the company of the students more than us. It's true.
It's true.
You know, I used to go sit with them. त्यो घाँसमा बसिरहेको हुन्छ, I would go and sit with them. भोकटे साँधिरहेको हुन्छ, I would sit with them and have भोकटे. Then I would go to the teacher's room. They would say, अब त teachers पनि भोकटे साँधे खान थालिसके स्टुडेन्टसँग बसेर. So I would hear that also. So it was fun. It was fun in terms of, I enjoyed. And my room was always jam-packed with students because I used to read palm.
Oh.
I used to read palm, so and I used to knit. I used to knit. I used to embroidery, and they would come and learn. And later on, I found out that so many of my students had started their own trade by making topis and jackets, and started becoming designers themselves. So I was very happy with that.
So they looked up to you even at that early age.
Yes.
That's a very
we were more like friends.
Friends, yeah. And like you said, you had the same wavelength. So I think they connected with you more than other senior teachers, I would say.
Yeah. And I remember, there was one book, Thomas Hardy's Test of the Devils, I used to teach. And every time, I used to talk about those love scenes where they wash their hands and the day they are married. And the women ask, which one is yours and which one is mine? And I would cry, and they would all cry with me.
Oh.
We used to do that. And when I went to resign from teaching, and I remember the rector, he was Dr. Mohan Mansaiju then, and he said, I can't let you go. How, English teacher, anyhow, very few. And on the other hand, how can I find a teacher who makes the students cry every year in class while teaching? I can't let you go. I remember that too.
Oh, that was nice. Talking of books, ma'am, have you written any books? Anything's coming up?
Yes. I have written my journey.
Awesome.
I have written whatever I'm talking to you, I have written that.
Nice.
I have written that, and the manuscript is ready. It needs a little bit of editing, and then it'll go to the publisher.
Nice. So we have to wait patiently for it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. Awesome.
Then it will definitely come to you too.
Oh, thank you. It'll be an honor for me. Women of today have taken over a whole lot of what was once considered impossible. How do you view this from your experience?
Okay, I'll turn the question around. Okay. And who knows? It was theirs too. It might be theirs. But when things were coined, even when you think, like words, when I was given the Lifetime Achievement Award by the President of Nepal, I addressed him as Rashtra Adhyaksha. So the press asked me later, why didn't you say Rashtrapati? And why did you say Rashtra Adhyaksha? So I said, because he is not Nepal's Pati. He is not the husband of Nepal. He is the Adhyaksha. He is the head of the executive of our country. Therefore, I addressed him that way. So even, the seats, the chair were given male names. Just Rashtrapati, Sabhapati. Look at all those, It was never coined that a woman would ever sit there. The concept wasn't there. But if you really look at Nepal, it is one of the exceptional countries which is quoted again and again. We had 33% in women in parliament in the CA, and now also we have 32.8%, which is not a joke. And we had 3 women heading the judiciary, legislative, and executive. So that is very exceptional. And the other day, while I was doing a keynote address, I was looking at data. So we have 782 upa-mayors and mayors at the moment at the provincial level. So the leadership is slowly coming up, or else in the decision making, women were there always working. As I said earlier, all women work, some are salaried, right? So in that context, but they were never there on decision making tables. Whenever it comes to decision making, topi lakai mansheharu basnu parne hai. So at least now things will change. Now I'm sure in the next election there will be more women mayors. Once they perform, And once they see the leadership of women leaders, I'm sure they'll get easily chosen next time, elected next time. Because we have seen, even worldwide, with 22 women leaders globally, we see the difference, especially after COVID, what others have done, where there are women leaders. How COVID even was, the pandemic itself was really kind of stopped after 7 weeks in New Zealand. You know the story of the PM in New Zealand, what they have been able to do. Things are changing, and gradually, if you really look at it, even the scene of the parliament is changing. You see women parliamentarians breastfeeding their children and still, forwarding bills and speaking. So, people would have never ever imagined that. And they see it. So times are changing, things are changing, and people are getting used to it.
That's true. We were talking about achievements. You received the Gorkha Dakshin Bhav. What was that experience when you...
It was very interesting because, I had seen earlier, even I have one here in my room, but with Gorkha Dakshin Bhav, I had always seen men receiving Gorkha Dakshin Bhav. So, the person would just bow down and the king would just, kind of put, garland them with the award. That is what I had seen. So I went, they did kind of, one day ahead, they tell us, you step, so you have to stand so many steps away from the king and all that, they do. But they never told me you have to put your hands up. Because as a woman, he will not put it in your neck, he'll give it in your hand. So I went in and I was just forwarding my neck, and then someone from one of the Kajis, he said, put your hand, I remember, and I was just putting my hand up and then I was given that.
Wow.
And when I came and told that story, it was very funny. And the next time I got Trishatti Patta also.
Okay.
I got 2 awards from King Birendra, late King Birendra. So in that I remember, I don't know why, I was standing quite far from him and I was asking for it, and the king was literally, you could see him stoop. I should have gone a little further and asked for it. I was very far away and asking for it. And the king was really moving his hands and stooping to give me.
Oh.
Now that was also, it's a very funny photograph. I still have that.
So we should share that picture. I see you have a lot of beautiful pictures at home. That's a nice picture you have on that.
And very good memories about him. I had a chance of course, on Independence Day and in Republic Day, all the diplomats are called in, we go for tea. So that is different. But private audience, I had a chance of getting that twice.
Okay.
Once with disabled children.
Okay.
I had gone, that photograph is. And the next time I went to talk to him about gender architecture. So during that time I remember, he was, as usual, he was talking to me and saying, औरतें हमारी माँ होती हैं, बहन होती हैं, बेटियाँ होती हैं. And I said, Your Excellency, that's very true. But they are the ones who are beaten blue and black at night. We also have to look at the way they are treated, the violence they face, the harassment they face. He really looked at me and he said, Mrs. Joshi, I think you need a lot of courage, for a president to ask that question to any commoner. I was just a commoner, one of the diplomats in his country. So he said, Mrs. Joshi, what do you think as the President of India I can do? I said, Your Excellency, when we talk and lobby for, zero tolerance, then it looks like bread and butter. But if you say it, it has so much weightage. And if you say, Your Excellency, that violence against women will not be tolerated, that would really work miracles. And I remember that day, I was at work and his speech was being relayed. And when I heard, I cheered, and all my friends said, we have to celebrate. Because the president said, violence against women will not be tolerated. That was brilliant, and I felt so happy.
So Ms. Chandni Joshi was able to influence the president.
Well, I'm sure there must be other factors, the
I'm
women's
sure.
movement,
Yes.
who have been,
But
whose
this
agenda.
special
Yes.
statement he made.
Yes,
it
that was
a
very
proud
touchy,
moment,
and
yeah.
he's someone I'll ever always remember and respect. अघि मैले प्रेसिडेन्ट कलामको कुरा गरेको थिएँ नि बबिताजी, त्यस्तै अरू पनि त के भने यो सुनामी भएपछि चाहिँ कुराकानी के हुन लाग्यो भने चाहिँ ह्युम्यानिटेरियन एड छँदैछ नि, हामीले युनिफर्मली के गर्ने र भन्ने कुरा भइरहेको थियो। तर हामीले के सुन्यौँ भने रिलिफको प्याकेजेस पाउनलाई पनि वुमेन ह्याड टु सेल दे बडिज भन्ने कुराहरू आयो। भने त्यो कुरा आएपछि हामी पनि लाग्नु पर्यो यसमा भनेर हामी लाग्यौँ र सुनामीको 5th डे चाहिँ म श्रीलङ्का पुगेँ। अनि त्यस्तै गरिकन तमिलनाडुमा पनि हामीले कार्यक्रम गऱ्यौँ, धेरै 2 वर्षसम्म कार्यक्रमहरू गऱ्यौँ। 2 वर्षपछि तमिलनाडुको कुरामा चाहिँ के भएको थियो भने हामीले 2 बेडरुमको घरहरू बनाइदिएका थियौँ 40जना सर्भाइभर्सलाई, 40वटा घर बनाएको थियौँ हामीले। अनि त्यसको चाहिँ ओपनिङ थियो, मन्त्रीलाई बोलाएको थियो र मन्त्रीलाई चाहिँ भन्दाखेरि त्यो बेला भन्नु पर्यो, ह्युम्यानिटी एडबारे पनि बोलिदिनु पर्यो, तिमी आउनु पर्यो दिल्लीबाट भनेर भने गर्यो। सो आई वेन्ट, अनि त्यहाँ पुगेँ, मन्त्रीले चाहिँ इनागुरेसन गर्यो, मलाई पनि अगाडि आऊ भने अगाडि यहाँ फाउन्डेसन जहाँ स्टोनहरू त्यो लेखा हुन्छ नि गरेर खोल्दाखेरि त त्यो कोलोनीको नामै उनीहरूले त चाँदनी कोलोनी राखेछ। दे वाज सो टच्ड के द वे आई नेगोसिएटेड, मैले कति कराएँ कति उ गरेँ भन्दाखेरि। एन्ड द्याट रिमाइन्डेड मी अफ फर्मर प्रेसिडेन्ट बिल क्लिन्टन। उहाँ आउनुभएको थियो, उहाँ चाहिँ हाम्रो UN सेक्रेटरी जेनरलको इन्भोय भएर अनि ह्युम्यानिटेरियन एड आउनुभएको थियो। अनि त्यो बेला चाहिँ हामी UN को सबै हेड अफ एजेन्सीसँग भेट्नुभयो बेला उहाँले सोध्नुभयो, इज द एनिथिङ आई निड टु नो बिफोर मिटिङ गभर्मेन्ट अफ इन्डिया भन्दा मैले चाहिँ के भनेको थिएँ भने योर एक्सलेन्सी ल्यान्ड राइट्स, वाइ सुड यु टक टु द गभर्मेन्ट अफ इन्डिया अन वुमेन्स ल्यान्ड राइट। सो आई नेगोसिएटेड विथ हिम एन्ड ही वाज भेरी स्विट, आई रिमेम्बर द्याट डे। अनि हामीहरू सबै हेड अफ एजेन्सीलाई पनि बोलाएको थियो, वी अल स्याट at the back, he was in the front, and every time he would talk about land rights, he would turn around and look at me as if, see, you told me, I told the government, it happened. Wow. So that was another feature I remember very, very distinctly. त्यस्तै गरिकन later on, after the earthquake in Pakistan, so the UN had called me to be the head of a mission of a group, and we had written a report on the gender issues after the aftermath of earthquake भनेर। त्यसमा पनि प्रेसिडेन्ट परवेज मुशर्रफ हुनुहुन्थ्यो, उहाँ भयो, प्राइम मिनिस्टर शौकत अजीज, दुईजनाका गएर रिपोर्ट दिएर दिस इज वाट द वुमेनले चाहिँ केही पनि पाएन, जेन्डर इस्युज चाहिँ नेग्लेक्टेड भयो भनेर उहाँहरूसँग पनि हामीले नेगोसिएट गरेको थियौँ। भन्दाखेरि त्यो मौका अघि हमिद कारजाईको यहाँलाई भनिहालेँ, भन्दा जहाँ मैले मौका पाएको थिएँ त्यहाँ चाहिँ हामीले नेगोसिएट गर्छौँ। र त्यस्तै गरिकन अहिले कोभिड पछि पनि हामीले चार्टर अफ डिमान्ड निकाल्यौँ। अनि नेपालको अर्थक्वेक भएपछि पनि हामीले चार्टर अफ डिमान्ड भनेर महिलाहरूको यो कन्सर्न छ होइन, दे सुडन्ट बी भाइलेन्स नहोस्, उनीहरूमा ट्राफिक नहोस् महिलाहरू यस्तो बेलामा भनेर हामीले निकालेका थियौँ त्यो बेला पनि। भन्दाखेरि त्यो नेगोसिएसन विथ वर्ल्ड लिडर्स इज भेरी भेरी इम्पोर्टेन्ट, है त्यो हेर्नुपर्छ। र एउटा कुरा अर्को चाहिँ मैले सिकेको के भने वी हेभ टु लिसन, and unless we listen to the women what they are saying, we cannot jump. हाम्रो छ नि प्रोजेक्टमा यस्तो थियो, प्रोजेक्टमा भएको भएर गर्नु पर्यो भन्ने कन्सेप्ट छ नि, त्यो होइन, इट हेज टु बी बटम अप, टप डाउन चाहिँ हुँदैन विकास भन्ने चाहिँ मेरो चाहिँ एकदम फर्म बिलिभ छ कि। एउटा इक्जाम्पल म तपाईँलाई दिन्छु, साउथमा यो बेङ्गलोरको आउटस्कर्ट्सको कुरा हो, त्यहाँ चाहिँ दे वाज द ट्राइबल बेल्ट छ नि, the travel belt, the women there were really downtrodden, and they were the ones who were cutting bark of the tree and collecting gum. That was their work. So while collecting gum, that is what they went and sold. Girjan Samaj भन्ने थियो त्यहाँ, they went and sold it there, and they would get 8 rupees for that 1 kilo. So I went to them, and I was sitting focused group discussion with them, and I was asking what can we do. And one of them got up and said, maybe you can chase monkeys for us, right? Maybe that is what you could do. And I was like, what? Chase monkeys for them? I laughed at the whole idea. And then later on, we helped them to organize, to talk through. We put a research component, and the researcher literally looked at, what they were collecting. That whole property of the gum is used for. We did a lot of action researches on one hand. On the other hand, the organizing of women. And World Bank was running a huge program called SERVE. So we said, okay, we'll look at the gender aspects, and if this works, then World Bank takes it. So that was a whole compromise, negotiation with World Bank. The property of gum is used for 200 products, for all cosmetics, and especially for toothpaste. And we connected them with Colgate toothpaste, and they got a huge order. So from the Girjan Samaj, they started selling straight to the traders. So after 2 years, I sat with the same group, and I asked, "What's your turn up of this year?" And the group would say like 50 lakhs was their turn up, and they were earning 8 rupees. They had their own, instead of the sheds, they had houses. And I said, "Oh, your husbands are back?" They said, "Yes." "Marta hai?" And they said, "Nahi," because now we control the money. We go to the market, we sell, and we control the money, and we give them money to drink. We give them money to drink 2 pegs. Allowance. So they come back and they're also happy, and with 2 pegs they don't beat us anymore.
What was your childhood like?
It was a very unusual childhood. Very unusual. Generally, people grow up, with a father, mother, 2 kids at home, 3 kids at home. That's how people grow up, in a secure kind of a house, and that's what you think of, a fairy tale. I was born in my mama ghar with my exiled grandfather. He was exiled Rana, living in Palpa, banished from Kathmandu, living there. It was a very big extended family, and we were 60 children of my own age. 60 children in that.
60.
60.
Wow.
Once in New York, it was a training program, CSW, it was a strategic planning workshop, and they were asking me, "Okay, Chandni, introduce yourself in a way. I had worked in that institution for so long. Now, how can I reintroduce myself?" So I thought I should say this. I said, "I grew up in a household with 60 children of my age, and it was not an orphanage." And they were all saying, "Oh, that's why you can just, you are so friendly with everyone. You know how to mix up with everyone. You are so kind." And they went on and on and on. So that was my childhood. And as I said, I had not seen Kathmandu till I was 13 years old. And while in Palpa, we used to call anyone who would come from Kathmandu, Nepali.
Okay.
Nepali daiko pasal, Nepal jane re, because we were far away in Palpa. So that's
different Nepal it was.
It was something very different. And as a child, I say this, and it's like I have been saying it. I had never seen a vehicle till I was 6 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, I saw a vehicle first time when I went to school in Lucknow.
Wow.
So it was quite an unusual childhood, and the 7 Salko Kranti happened that time. So no one was allowed to come in, no one was allowed to go out, and we had to eat whatever was in the house. So we didn't have food for very long. So we were given makai bhatmas we were given morsels of makai bhatmas, and we had to live on that. So when people started talking about, my whole family, my mother, my father, my grandfather, my uncles, they were all part of the revolution. So they were freedom fighters. And my mother, who had just given birth to a child, and she was bleeding, still she was carrying the Fortare, the Congress Jhanda with her. So they were freedom fighters. And I saw that with my eyes. And they were all fighting for freedom. And all of us children, we were thinking, क्रान्ति भएपछि अब ऊ भएपछि त भात खान पाउँछ. That was 2 छाक भात खान पाउँछ. Was a...
It was such a different time. And
yes.
That experience must have been scary also at the same time.
Scary भन्दा पनि बबिताजी, it was more like, I lived a life of a nomad.
Okay.
We never had a house of our own. Even till date, my father doesn't have a house. I don't have a mighty as such.
Okay.
Now my nephews have built a house and all that is there. But my father couldn't. He didn't.
Okay.
He was a freedom fighter. He was a public servant. But public servant, a true public servant who just, survived in his salary. So you could never think of building a house in Kathmandu. So my mother would always lament about it. And I would say, no, 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 that tells stories about my father. What a good, honest man he was, That's a matter of pride, I would say. And the first house ever we had was this house that we built.
Wow.
So throughout my life, it was a nomad's life. We never knew, what you, आफ्नो घर भनेको के हो, आफ्नो भन्ने के हो नि थाहा छैन. यो मामा घर बस्यो, ऊ मामा घर बस्यो, ऊ भाडा घर बस्यो, त्यो भाडा घर बस्यो, बाजेको घरमा बस्यो, यसको घरमा बस्यो, That's how my whole
Very interesting.
childhood and youth,
Youth.
भनौँ न, my whole youth also, I spent my youth that way.
Okay. It's a very different, but you said अब 60 kids सँग हुर्किएको हैन 60 जनासँग तपाईको त्यही बेला नि mind एउटा develop भइसक्यो for love, for unity, for caring. त्यहीबाटै build भइसक्यो हजुरको त्यहीबाट I think, and then also seeing it from your family, the strength and the power they had for the nation. So
Yeah, exactly.
And that's shining now through you, and we are getting to hear your story. It's very nice. How would you interpret a strong woman, in your words?
Well, a strong woman for me is a woman who has integrity, who has principles, not digne भन्छ नि, which nothing can allure her. Because one thing I have seen, people talk about, political system didn't allow me, bureaucratic systems didn't allow me, red tapeism छ, यो भएर भएन. These are all excuses, I think. If you are determined to do anything, if you are bent upon, डटेर म गर्छु भनेपछि, no one and nothing can stop you. My whole book is on that.
Okay.
As a Nepali woman, once you are determined, once you are strong enough and you decide, nothing can alter that. That's the प्राण चाहिँ रहन्छ. No one can, kind of move you from your determination.
Yeah.
So for that you have to be strong in terms of your integrity. Nothing should, move you from there.
So that's a strong woman.
Yeah. And she should be normal, she should cry, she should laugh, be happy, be sad, and be bold enough, bold enough to say, I know this, I don't know this, teach me this, I don't understand, I make mistakes.
Yeah.
A normal.
A
strong woman is not a perfect woman.
Okay.
She doesn't have to be perfect.
That's true.
Her integrity has to be perfect.
Okay.
Her vision has to be very clear.
Yeah.
Her goal should be set. That's it. And no one should be able to alter that.
That's true. Who is your role model?
Well, I wish I could say this, I could say that. Well, one would be, in bits and pieces. I think my grandfather has made a very strong mark. As I was writing the book, and especially my daughter Srishti, she really instigated me to realize that I had so many characteristics of my grandfather. So many, fighting for justice, the patience, the tolerance level, letting things go, all that. I think I got it. I wish I could name one person. And that thirst, that hunger to know more, for knowledge, for education, I think that comes from my mother, who never had a chance to go to school. She wanted to fulfill that through me. So that thirst is still here. Till date, I still want to learn. I take my notebook wherever I go. I sit in webinars, during these, last year, I think we were counting the other day, I think it's around 99 webinars, I have participated and spoken in. But every time I don't know how many books full of notes I take.
Okay.
I want to learn more, I want to know more. That thirst never goes away.
So two great role models.
Yeah, I think two of them, and my father too. His hard work, his simplicity, non-arrogance, able to mix up with anybody. In a Rana household, a field marshal getting married to the field marshal's daughter, but still remaining a commoner, and making your children feel you are a commoner, you are nothing different. That also, I think that from my father. So I would say bits and pieces, bits and pieces.
So you've been blessed. You've had the best role models in your life.
Yes.
Right? And to sum it up, it's the best role models. Can you share any success story on gender sensitivity? Yeah.
Well, I have 101 of those. Maybe I should talk about Afghanistan.
Absolutely.
Eh?
Yeah.
So this was, it started, I had my knee surgery, total knee surgery. I couldn't walk, and I literally had to learn how to walk, re-walk again, that's exactly what happens after knee surgery, and you are supposed to go to a physiotherapist and get your sessions done. I couldn't go to any, because I heard that in Islamabad they were having a huge meeting on the reconstruction, rebuilding of Afghanistan. So New York asked me, they are having that meeting, what do you think about it? I said, I think I should go. With that knee you want to go? I said, yes, I think I should. So I went. And I thanked myself when I reached Islamabad, because in Marriott Hotel there were 700 men with long beards, and there was one woman in that meeting. And
that one woman was you?
No? Seema Samar, Afghani. Well, from the UN we were many. I really wanted to scream and shout, but I said, no, I better keep my cool. So as the meeting was on, one of the questions I asked is, even when we talked regularly, we talked about 60,000 widows in Kabul. Just in Kabul, 60,000 widows. I said, where are they? You are 700 men, and there's one woman. So where are those women? So I promised that we'll do the first meeting of women in Kabul, and that also next year. So in 2002, after 23 years of war in Afghanistan, the Taliban were very much there. Maybe they would have cut their beard and changed the color of their Pathani suits. That's it. But they were very much there. In that situation, 2,000 women got together and they came up with a 6-point agenda and handed it over to the President, Hamid Karzai. And my boss, Nolin Hazen, I had gone to Hamid Karzai, and I just interrupted and I said, Your Excellency, I hope you and the Women's Ministry's Minister, Seema Samar, not just the two of you, but the whole cabinet should come. Because women want to give their agenda to the Finance Ministry, to the Home Ministry, to the Ministry of Trade and Industry also, not just to the Women's Ministry. So next day, the whole battalion came, and Karzai called me. So I had to go, and he said, Mrs. Joshi, my whole entourage is here with me. So those women, when they presented the 6-point agenda, you can imagine what must be happening to me.
Wow.
That was the success story. It took, and when I say this, it sounds wonderful, but how it happened, I can't tell you how it happened.
The hard work.
The hard work, the risk factor. First time in my life, I have gone to bed with my shoes and my overcoat on. My cap, my overcoat and jutta. I couldn't even take out my shoes. Just so fatigued.
And plus such a fearful environment also,
exactly.
you know, at that time.
You know, for $10 you can be shot anytime. The first bombing that happened after the Taliban's, I was there in Kabul. And there was a reception the RC had given in my honor, and we were all there, and all of a sudden, you know, all the windows were shattered and I couldn't go back to the guest house. So the DRR was a woman, Janet. So she took me to her house, and the next day I was flying back. I was made to fly back. And I remember sitting in that plane, and the DRR, you know, she was saying, please get out of the way quickly. This is the target. You know, this is the big plane, the big UN plane is the target. Don't you know that? It's red alert. Fly it back. And I'm sitting there thinking of my 3 children. I'm still sitting there, and they are saying this plane is a target. It can be shot anytime, and I'm sitting there. So that kind of risks. You know.
So it's like a movie, Mission Impossible.
Yes.
It's like
Many
such a
years.
yeah. Oh my
There's a whole chapter on risk I have written in the book.
How important culture is to you?
Culture is very, very important. But the tinge, you know, that one gives to culture is always like women are the forbidden ones. They are the ones who are, you know, kind of discriminated because of culture, because of tradition. But I don't think so. You know, culture is something very different, and it's for all. It's for all, and it doesn't look at what gender, but it's the whole patriarchal mindset that makes those decisions. You know, and I remember one very learned person in India. He was in the National Planning Commission. So I remember he telling me, you know why? Because there's so much embedded discrimination in our country that we want you to work on gender itself for 4 years. So he was giving 2 examples. One was, you know, even the way we bless our women is Sada Saubhagyavati Bhava. That's a kind of a blessing saying, may you die before your husband. So is it a curse or is it a blessing? She thinks it's a blessing, and the person who is giving that blessing also thinks it's a blessing, but it's not a blessing, it's a curse. It's telling you to die soon. And the next blessing is Dudo phalo puto nahao. Puto phalo dudo nahao. That means may you produce many sons. May you be a machine that produces sons. So that's supposed to be the kind of blessings women get. And they don't even realize they are being discriminated. And the person giving those also doesn't do it. So that's the kind of, you know, there's so much impunity, Babitaji, that happens. We see it, but we don't see it. It's happening even for the person who's going through, you know, doesn't feel. Like I gave you examples, you know, like 54% of women in a quite a big survey that was done in India. It says that if my husband beats me because the food wasn't good, it's okay. It shows he loves me. So that's the whole concept, you know.
Sad. That's sad. I think we're so ignorant. I think we become so ignorant because with acceptance and a tolerance.
Yeah, and all these things you lump it with culture. Culture never tells you to do that. You know, culture always talks about giving equal space for men and women. Culture always gives you, you know, that independence. It shows happiness. You know, tranquility, happiness, solidarity, unity. That's what culture shows. Being together. But we make it so small. We make it so micro according to our own thinking. So we are the ones who spoil it. Or as culture, I think is...
yeah, I think like you said, like it's a blessing or a curse. It's like a blessing in disguise or a curse in disguise. We don't know it, but we accept it because it's part of the culture. And you're so right. Invest in women. This would help with the GDP growth. This statement you have mentioned many times. Can you elaborate on this?
Generally, what we saw, I don't know why I'm giving you more examples of India, because the long history that they have. What was done was, when women started coming in, they started being sabotaged. Sabotaged in a way is the meetings were called at night so that she couldn't go, and the meetings would be called at like 10 o'clock in the morning when she's cooking. So intentionally, those things. And then they would say, send your husband if you can't come. So he became the Panchapati. Okay, so she was the Pancha, but he became the Panchapati. So that kind of games are played very often, right? But if she is, if you really look at it, if the care burden is taken care of, if it's divided, if it's shared, even among family members, she can start earning. She does earn. Like, we work with the home-based workers. We work with the home-based workers, and in HomeNet, I'm the enforcer of HomeNet South Asia. We have 900,000 members in HomeNet South Asia. And what we see here also is, home is their workplace. They're working from home, but she has to do so many other things at home besides doing that productive work. So if that other work was shared, her productive work would multiply, and the GDP would definitely grow. So it's the same with any other household, because we talk about two rath ko duita paiya maner bhaन्छौं नि, but look at it, one paiya is like a truck's paiya and the other is like a bicycle paiya. That rath is anyhow going to topple, right? So two have to be same. So it's shared parenting, shared unpaid housework. If that happens, she can contribute more to productive work. So that is, and the other thing also is her contribution, even the productive contribution she does, is not counted in the national economy. My work with the census for the last 4 decades shows that it is not properly counted. Her productivity role is also forgotten. So if all that is counted properly and taken care of, then definitely the GDP will
go up.
Yeah, go up.
We'll have a better GDP.
Yeah.
That's so true. Talking about fashion, your fashion statement. I like the flower you match with your attire. Can you tell us more about this?
Yes, there are two things I'm very fond of. One is my necessity, in terms of I have been after both my knee replacement, I have to have a stick. So that is my support system, let me say. So I have several of those. Wherever I go, my children go, they collect.
Okay.
And get it ready in my height, according to my height. So I have several colors. So whenever I walk down from upstairs and ready to go out, I choose according to my clothes. So my stick is my fashion statement. And with my very little hair that remains back now, my flowers really help me to adorn my hair.
Okay.
So my flowers, my artificial flowers, and my stick are my fashion statements.
Your support and the rose.
And the rose, yes. And they're different. I have orchids and all different kinds.
Okay.
Yes.
So you have a beautiful collection of flowers in your garden. That's so pretty. Ma'am, you are so beautiful. I could imagine how more beautiful in your younger days, in your teenage days, and then just seeing you in this beautiful moment and time. It was an honor for me to be here. And I cannot thank you and family enough for welcoming us to your home and allowing us to be with you during this pandemic while you're with your oxygen mask, and you've just got your vaccine and you got high fever, and still you were able to accommodate us. This is a big thank you.
Thank you, Babitaji. You know, in the end, I would want to say a little bit about my family.
Definitely.
Okay,
Please.
because I did talk about my childhood.
Yes.
I also want to talk about my old age. After I retired, came back, you know, I had a very eventful life, very busy life, and I wouldn't say, you know, I have neglected my children, but I would say, you know, I have not been able to give them as much time as I would have loved to give. So that time that I owed it to my children, now I'm trying to give it to my grandchildren, you know. And I have 3 beautiful grandsons. And here I would really want to say a little bit about my 2 children.
Please.
I am because of them, because of my 2 children, and especially my daughter Srishti and
right
my
here.
son Pranay.
Yeah.
And by the way, I have walked to 65 districts of Nepal while running PCRW. You know, walking to 65 districts. Then we didn't have, you know, motorable roads. You had to walk to Baglung. I walked to Baglung. I walked to Dhankuta from Dharan. So I've done all that, and my knees just didn't go like that.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
So it's with that all the hard work.
Yes, yes.
It's-
Deseva, Deseva.
Desheva, yeah.
I
Srishti
would
is such
say.
a beautiful name.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she's a real Srishti. She's a
Real
real
Srishti.
Srishti.
Thank you. Thank you, Srishti.
Yes, yeah. And Pranay means love, and that is what my son is. Personification of love, care. That's what he is. So my
Beautiful.
children and their spouses, and of course my 3 precious stones, my 3 grandsons.
Grandsons,
Yeah, they have made me what I am today.
As we bring our program to a closure, we request you to provide a message for our audience. Any suggestions, any advice, anything you want to give us?
Well, I don't want to be prescriptive,
Okay.
but what I would really want to say is pursue your dream, pursue it, don't leave it in the middle. And if you you know, if you give your 100% to anything, you get wonderful returns.
That's so true.
And those are returns I have never expected, but it has come back to me. Just पाउने महिला भन्छु मैले आफूले आफूलाई. So I'm sure if you do that, anybody does it, they'll get those returns for sure. I can guarantee that.
Okay. And ma'am, is there anything else you want to share that I may have not covered? Or
Oh, I could go on talking to you the whole day, Bhavitaji.
please, I would listen. It's because किताबमा के special secret share गर्नुहुन्छ before it comes out?
Lots of secrets, sir.
Lots of secrets.
Lots of secrets. I've talked about balancing, you know, how I balance my family life and how I balanced my career. अब सानो सानो कुराको लागि पनि कि even small human right issues like with my 2 daughters, I was teaching in Padmakane, so it was easy, you know, I could accommodate my classes and I would come and breastfeed them. So I gave them their right, you know, to breastfeed for 3 years each, both of them. But for my son, I had already started working 10 to 5 work गर्न थालिसकेको थिएँ administration-मा. So it was difficult, and I felt it was not, you know, fair on the child, because his 2 sisters got 3 years of milk. Why shouldn't he also? So I was depriving him. So I went and told my boss that can I work half day? I'll come work. I'll take work home. Flexi hour भन्ने त कन्सेप्टै थिएन नि त्यो बेला त, थाहै छैन कसलाई पनि. I said I'll take work home. म घरमा गरेर आउँछु, तपाईको के पनि काम बित्दैन भन्दाखेरि नो, द प्राइम मिनिस्टर इज भेरी स्ट्रिक्ट हुनुहुन्छ, हुँदैन. लेट सूर्यबहादुर थापाजी प्राइम मिनिस्टर हुनुहुन्थ्यो. आई सेड टेक मी टु द प्राइम मिनिस्टर, आई विल प्लेज. मेरो आफ्नो केसमा आफै भन्छु, बट आई कान्ट डिप्राइभ माई सन भनेर, अर एल्स आई रिजाइन. I resign. I want to give that to my child, or else I'll come back after he is 3 years. भनेपछि I don't know what he did. On his own cost, he let me go. That kind of negotiation, that kind of difficult negotiations.
Like you said, like a role model who needs to be determined what they're doing. You were strong. You're a role model for us. I would say
यसो हुन्छ बबिताजी, if you have to walk your talk.
Yes.
And just to give, for example, you talk about patriarchal systems, you talk about taboos, you talk about stigmas, discrimination. So if you are part of that yourself, how do you preach tomorrow? How do you say that tomorrow? भन्दा मेरो छोरीको बिहाको कुरा गरौँ है, सृष्टिको बिहामा generally कुरा छिन्ने बेलामा त they are always men who go and talk, but since Mohan wasn't there, so I sat in that room and I said I have one ऊ हाम्रो त अब आधा पर्वते आधा नेवारको जस्तो बिहा भयो. So we said you do whatever your culture is, I'll do whatever my culture is, but there's one condition कि म चाहिँ कन्यादान दिँदैन किनकि मेरो छोरी चाहिँ गाई होइन. मैले कन्याको उसको गाईको दान दिनु मिल्दैन, कन्यादान दिनु मिल्दैन, अनि म कन्यादान चाहिँ दिँदैन. अब पर्वते चलनमा कन्यादान नदिनु इज अ बिग थिङ. For my mother, for my mother-in-law, it was like, she's not going. And जो पनि आउँछ कन्यादान दिने कहाँ हो, कहाँ बनाउने त्यो यज्ञ, त्यो कहाँ बनाउने, everyone would come and I would hear my mother-in-law say, नदिने रे बुहारीले कन्यादान नदिने रे, छोरीले कन्यादान नदिने रे भने सुन्थेँ कि. So I decided, I did it, and I said when it was so difficult for people to understand why. किन भनेर भन्दाखेरि ऊ त कमोडिटी होइन नि, होइन, थ्रु मी भगवानले पठाएको हो, तर I don't own her. She has her own right to her body, to herself नि त. I can't give her away भनेर. अनि अर्को चाहिँ right to property. I said whatever I have, my two children have equal pattern. हाम्रो त पुर्खौली जमिन उ त जग्गा त मैले आफूले कमाएको हो, so the two of them should get equal.
With time we should change once. Like हाम्रो कति हाम्रो चाहिँ we go by the things that in the past are not all still relevant or irrelevant आजको generation 21st century मा. So हजुरले गर्नु भएको it's a big step.
अनि मैले गरेको भएर गर्नुपर्ने होइन कि. अब जस्तो कि अर्को कुरा के भने बाउआमा बितेपछि चाहिँ मैले आगो त दिएन, मैले भाइहरू थियो है, they had their own right to do things. तर what I did was I did सबै कर्म चाहिँ मैले गराएँ, सबै बाउको पनि गराएँ, आमाको पनि गराएँ. सो हुन्न भन्ने कुरा छोरीबेटीले गर्नुहुन्न रे, भार हुन्छ रे. I never cared what others say. For me it was one time life हो, and you have to do what you मेरो भित्रीले inner selfले भन्नु पर्यो कि यो right हो यो wrong हो. Whenever it says it's right, I do it. Be it my marriage, intercaste marriage, or revolution in those days, whatever it was, whatever I felt it was right, I did it.
That's true. Like you said, everybody doesn't need to follow. You know, it's one's individuality को perspective, a point of view. हजुरको point of view भयो यही सही लाग्यो तपाईले यही follow गर्नुभयो हैन. People may not may agree and not agree. तर एकदम खुसी लाग्यो. हाम्रो we've come to the end of our program and हृदयदेखि फेरि धन्यवाद दिन चाहन्छु. Thank you so much. To all our viewers, we hope you've enjoyed this special program with Miss Chandni Joshi, a prominent figure for gender rights and policy specialist. Until next time, this is Babita signing off, the entire Light and Shadow team, and I look forward to seeing you in our next episode. Please like, share, subscribe. Be positive, stay blessed. Namaste.